Okay, welcome to Tinkercad 3D Design. I'm going to hide some things on my screen so I have real estate to see stuff. Okay, so 3D Design. Tinkercad is the site that we'll be designing in. So you can just make a free account anytime you want. But yeah, 3D design. So like we just had a question a second ago when the video began. 3D design is a huge field, and you can print in a lot of types of things. You can print in metal. Most of the time it's plastics, ceramic. They 3D print houses that kind of build the walls with cement, kind of like you see in this, just doing walls slowly with cement. Yeah, so all kinds of applications with 3D design. We at the library have a machine exactly like this one, this a little desktop one, and it basically has a spool of plastic filament and this little nozzle thing that's switching around in the middle of the bed has basically a hot end nozzle that's kind of melting the plastic out and laying it down exactly XYZ the way it needs to go. And then as you can see on the setup time lapse on the left, all it is just building slowly, level by level up along the z-axis until the whole design is printed out. That's what it looks like. The software that you use is called CAD, or Computer Assisted Design. Yeah, so it's digital design to make 3D objects. Lots of fields use CAD. So like gaming, when it comes to graphics, entertainment with like special effects and stuff, building and design uses a lot. The building our products and molds and stuff, that all uses CAD. Publishing an ad, kind of like graphics and special effects. The geological sciences use them, 3D imaging and stuff. And then the health field uses CAD to build prosthetics and stuff and to do like 3D scanning and imaging. CAD is kind of all applicable in all those fields. Today is just like the most basic application of that, just making something pretty quick with a pretty easy to use website. We'll see in just a couple minutes when we get in. Once we get going, it's easy to see the concept of how we make stuff in 3D. Hopefully it won't be too difficult. Anyone completely new at it, hopefully it'll sink in pretty quick. I just have some completely random examples of 3D stuff that you can do. So all this is made in plastics, like what we can do at the library. And you can do small things like plant pots. You can do things like stencils with cutouts and like cookie cutting stencils, stuff like that. You can have things, it's difficult to see because it's not moving, but this mouse is articulated, so the tail moves, the head and body move, and that's all printed in one piece. So it's pretty cool what you can print out just in one go, and then you have all these types of moving components based on the plastic that it's built with. Little basket that folds down flat at the bottom left. This too is just printed out in one piece. And then you just peel it off the print bed, and then you can kind of snap it and put it into place to make this 3D folding basket, and then you can fold it back down again. So as long as you have the genius to conceptualize that, the 3D machine and the plastic can all handle that. So really cool stuff that you can make with this. Some things that we need to think about now that we've kind of seen what it can do and how the machine moves and stuff when designing is again, what you'll be designing with. So this is just like a simple template that you could actually buy and you could actually print out with the 3D machine. This is printed in one, maybe two pieces. Maybe it's two pieces that you just snap in at the hinge. But you can see on this side, the little bit that you snap into, that's just depending on the natural flexibility of the plastic to be able to snap in and snap back out. So if you want something to be moving and have functionality, you might need to do some testing to see how thick you need to make something, how thin you need to make something so it doesn't snap, but it's not immovable. So depending on what you want to build, if it has, again, functionality, it might take some prototypes. If you make something that's kind of floating in place, we can see down this way with this dragon. Obviously, it's a dragon body that's kind of up and down and all around. But like we could see back this way, The machine builds from the bottom up. So if we have something like, dragon head, as well as all the spine pieces not touching the bed of the 3D machine itself, those you need to add like scaffolding, basically, just like plastic columns that sit below the eventual actual piece of the model. And you just print up those columns until you eventually hit the model, and then you can rest that model on top of that while it's being printed. And then what you do at the end is all the green column scaffolding at the end. You just basically rip away and dispose of it, and then you just have the dragon left. With that, that's not something that we need to think about um, exactly now that when we design, because when we stick a 3D model into the 3D printing machine that we have, it can automatically calculate and build this kind of scaffolding. So if you wanted to make a dragon, you could make one exactly like the dragon itself, and then the machine would add all that scaffolding. You don't need to design that or think about it in any way. You just need to think about it in the sense that if you need to have all that scaffolding, it's going to add to how much plastic you need, how much time you need to spend printing. And if you have any really delicate pieces, when you eventually need to rip away that scaffolding plastic, you just need to check that it's like thick enough that it's not going to get ripped away when you pull off that scaffolding. So that's something else to think about. And then finally, I just have take a simple, this is like a Pikachu model, just a little Pokemon. It's not the most complicated model, but you can see all this fuzz is happening. And sometimes just the machine is finicky, maybe it's humid that day and that's messing with the heat of the plastic and the nozzle, blah, 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 a bunch of things. The machine can fail, it can do all this random stuff. It can be too weak when you print out specific components. So that's something else that can happen. You can have a completely logical looking model that looks strong and buildable, but then this 3D machine, just because it's now not a hypothetical model, but an actual machine building stuff and has to calculate plastic melting temps and how hot the printing bed is to keep it hot. Flukes and little mess ups can happen. Okay. Let's go ahead and get into the site. Actually, one last thing, and then we'll get into the site itself. So I'm just going to show us the library's this 3D printing page. If you come to the library website, this is the web address, and you can also just get to it this way from the navigation menu. You'll see we have a web page. You can find all the info on how much time you can get, the typical cost of something. You can find the websites that I've been mentioning to find things and to make things. You can see all the filaments that you can use to print in. And a quick note about this, the machine that we have, it only has one like hot nozzle that it's melting the filament out of. So it can only print one filament at a time. So the models that you might send us have to be, solid blue, solid yellow, solid black. You can't, switch them in and out and anything like that. Some machines can do that if it has the capability to have, multiple plastics fed in. It has multiple printing nozzles, but we specifically don't have that machine. So we have that limitation with us. But once you maybe design something, or maybe you just find something, you can just come and click on this button. And what you can do is submit it to us. You just do, name and contact info, what you want it printed in. You will attach what we'll be making in just a few minutes, which is a 3D file, and it has the file extension .stl. That's what you'll, I don't know why that's attached. You'll include that, upload that, add any notes, and then just submit it. And then once we get it at the library, we will, if we have a printing queue, we might have a few people ahead of you, so it might take 1 to 2 to 3 days. But once we get to you, we'll print it out as you specified, and then we'll just email you that it's ready to be picked up and the final cost, which is usually about $1, if it's what we usually get in terms of size. Okay. I'll show you Tinkercad homepage so you can see how to make a blank design, and then I'll just hop back to my ready made one. I am logged in, obviously. If you don't have an account, you can make one quickly. I'm on my homepage. I have all my past designs. So I went to 3D designs, actually like 80 of them. You can also do different types of projects with code blocks and stuff, but we'll just focus on this. We can get back to any existing project that we have. And you now would go to plus create and just make a 3D design. And then you will open up page minus the couple things that I have already waiting on the build plate that I'll be using today. This is what it looks like. I'm just going to go through the layout of the interface, the buttons and stuff on this side, and then we'll get into the project we will be demoing today, which is going to be, it's pretty simple, but it's going to basically showcase all the types of tools and clicks in Tinkercad, which is just going to be like a one-hand page holding little gizmo. You can hold a book open with one page. Pretty simple, not too exciting, but you can jazz it up any way you want with text and stuff on top. And again, it's going to show us pretty much all the tools available in this simple CAD program. So it's just going to be useful to time and efficiency of teaching that way.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
If I already have an image that I want turned into 3D, would this be something that I would utilize, or would I just upload?
So I was going to get to that at the end. You just have like a
Okay.
2D design or like a 2D logo, something like that.
Yes.
We can actually see I have one of those too. This is a 2D design, the library's logo, obviously, that I got. You need to have it as a .svg file. That's a specific type of image file. It's a 2D image file, but it's still a specific type that you need. It basically just takes any 2D image in that file extension and drops that onto the canvas. And all it does to make it 3D, it just gives it, a little bit of thickness. You can see if I add it at an angle, it's now 3D since it just thickened it a little bit. And you can add in anything that way. Yeah, that's the
You
simple answer. Yeah, almost any image you can find some way to make it an SVG file and then try to upload it in that way.
you said N like Nancy, NSVG?
It's an SVG file. This is what you need. SVG is a 2D image
Right.
file. So that's what you need. These second two, STL, is what will download a 3D object as. So that's just a 3D file. And OBJ or .object, it's just a different type of 3D file that you could download it as if you wanted to send it someplace else that like that file extension instead of us. But yeah, you
Okay.
would want to look at SVG files to do a 2D thing to upload into this.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Let me go back to there. This is, you don't have to memorize this. You don't have to write this down. You can just Google Tinkercad buttons and controls. But this is kind of all the options of button clicks and stuff to move things, size things, toggle options and stuff. So as I go through today, I'm going to call out the buttons I'm clicking. So hopefully you begin to get an idea. But you can always just look this up and find this on Tinkercad's website to find out how to do all the buttons. I'm going to hop into this now, and we'll just go through the menu itself, and then we'll get to actually designing. To zoom in and out, I'm just spinning my mouse wheel, basically, zoom in, zoom out. I also have these buttons on the left-hand side, zoom in, zoom out. We can also just, if I am too zoomed in, if I'm off to the side, something like that, we can always just click the home button to zoom out and to see the whole project field all at once. That's the home button. And then we also have below that, what is it called? The fit all in view. And that's what I can do if I want to look at a specific object on my field. So if I left click and drag like this, and I have this specific object or maybe left click and drag and have this bunch of objects highlighted. I can use this fit view to selected to zoom in on just those specifically. So I can zoom in on a specific subset of my project, or I can zoom out to the whole project, zoom in, zoom out. And then kind of the last button on the left-hand side is this little button that just switches like the type of 3D view that you look in. It's kind of useful when you want to look at something like flat on from the top. You can see when I click it this way, I kind of see this. It looks like mostly 2D, so it's kind of useful that way. Well, if I do this view, it definitely looks 3D. I see all the sides of things and stuff like that. You can play with those a little bit depending on what you need at the moment, but that's just like a little toggle of the type of view that you have. Next, just to pan around like this, I'm using my right click, just right clicking and holding the click, and then I'm kind of moving my mouse to kind of tilt around any way that I want. That is my right click. My left click is just to select objects on my field. Each of these is its own object. We'll see in a minute, I can move them, I can size them, do anything I want with them individually. The left click is to select things. Right click is to pan around like this. And then if I want to, if I'm on this side of the field and I want to get to that stuff I had up at the top, I'm going to hold down my shift key, and then I can use my right click and drag, right click and drag, and then I can move up like this. Shift right click is to move around like this. And then just right click by itself is just to kind of pan around a specific point like that. So basic buttons. And then finally, we have this little view cube up at the top. And this is just like a quick click to see specific types of views. It pretty much explains itself. It's just showing you specific angles. You can use that if you want. Click sides, the edges, stuff like that. And you can also just click and hold with the left click and then pan it around like that. So the simple button, a couple ways to do each thing it looks like. So you can choose which way that you like best to do that. Up at the top, we have a couple buttons up this way, and then some on this way. We'll get to some of these buttons as we go. So I'm going to kind of skip this top menu of buttons. So we'll get to that in the middle as we get to them one by one. But now we'll look at the right-hand side, and this is what we'll do to begin adding stuff to the project and begin actually building and playing around now. So we'll be focused on this menu down this way, although I'll just explain now in case I miss it at the end. This is how we'll download the project once we finish. So I can choose, .stl to download my object and send it to the library to get printed out. That's how you can do that way. If you wanted to, like we talked about a minute ago, add in an SVG file you have to like add a logo to this to stamp on the edge of a 3D object, you can add the SVG file this way. And we'll see also in this class, if you see an existing project in like Tinkercad, all of this stuff that you would find online, you can download the STL files of those off the website. And then you can see when we come back to this, you can also add 3D files. So you can just basically take someone else's 3D file, put it in this project, and then you can update it, modify it, combine it with something else. So you don't have to make everything homemade. You can find stuff online, drop it in, and then do anything that you want with it. That's my button up at the top. And now finally, we'll get to adding stuff to the field itself. Let me just advance my slideshow a little bit. Okay. Yep. So we have a whole bunch of shapes. I'm just going to do the shapes that I need with this project. You'll be able to see they have a whole bunch of menus of types of shapes, pre-built shapes that you can just steal and add to the design anytime that you want. And they also just have like a find tool to look stuff up by name. Oddly enough, they didn't used to have this. You would just have to look in the menus endlessly until you found something, but they finally added the find tool. So you can just look stuff up by name to see if they have what you want. They also have that available. I'm going to go ahead and click on an object that I want. I'm going to click on this with my left click and just drag it into the field. And we'll play around with this a little bit and then get into actually designing it. I'm going to zoom in a little, got my shift right click to move around if I want. I can click it and then fit to view so it's zoomed in and we can see it nicely. And then we can see when we left click on something, we get it selected and we get all the options associated with that object. This one is special, so it has like facets that you can update a little bit. This can affect like how round the object is. So I'm going to pull up the sides maybe. You can bevel the edges if you want. Segment is something else. I don't know exactly what that's doing. But yeah, we have this on the field. We'll talk about the change between these two in just a second. Ahead of then, I'm going to show all of these little buttons on the object itself. So we can see to move it, I can just left click and drag it to move it around, put it next to something else, anything like that. And then we also have a bunch of buttons to change the size and the rotation of it, because we can basically do anything we want with these objects. When I click on it, you can see I can view it this way by pulling on this axis. I'm going to Control Z to undo. You also have undo and redo buttons up this way if you want to do a bunch of stuff and then go back to the original shape. So I have these size handles on the edges. I have them on the sides. If I want to do it this way, you can kind of rotate that any way you want. We have the Z axis, so up and down. We can pull that any way that we want as well. And then finally, you can see how we can change it X, Y, Z. We also see these rotation handles down this way to also rotate along X, Y, Z, up, down, and side to side. I can also come in and click on this, and then you can see you can rotate it any way that you want. You can do a specific exact amount of degrees if you want, or you can click it and then kind of choose the logical setting of like an exact 90 or something to flip it exactly that way. So we can do all that with these objects. And then one last thing to note, just when it comes to basic sizing and rotating and stuff, if we left click and drag and get a bunch of stuff at once, anything that we do to them will happen to them as a group. I selected all these, I can move them all at once. I can size and skew them all at once any way that I want. I can rotate them all at once if I want. So this can be helpful to us when we want to move things kind of in sync. Although if you don't want that, you'll just use one object at a time and do what you want with that. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can the object be anywhere on the work mat, or does it have to be centered, or does it not matter?
No, it can be any place. Like you have this blue field, it can be any place on it. It can be any place, 10 feet above it. It can be kind of off of it. It doesn't like vanish if you go off the field. I don't know the exact limitations, but yeah, it can be any place. You don't have to stick to like the middle or anything.
Okay, thank you.
And then that's a good point, actually, that kind of reminded me of something. The project itself is kind of unitless. So we should think, if I'm building like a little thing that's going to hold a page open, I don't need to think along the lines of, how many inches tall is this object right now? I just need to think how big is this piece relative to this piece. And then when I go to print it out on the 3D machine, at that point, you can scale it up and down to be an inch big, 10 feet big if you have a machine at that point. So we don't need to think in exact sizes. We just need to think, does everything look good relative to everything else in the design, if you know what I mean. Okay. So we have this. Let's go to my project. Let's go back and we can see, just show again as we get into it. We want to basically make this. And what we'll do in this type of CAD program is we basically will be taking a whole bunch of different shapes and combining them to make one big shape. But this exact shape is not in this website. But we do have like a can shape, we do have like a triangle shape, we do have a text tool, which we'll see in a minute, and we need to somehow combine additively and subtractively to make this design as a whole. Right now, I'm going to focus on the middle bit, this roundness in the middle, and then I'll do the triangle, and then we'll add like the text and stuff. That's kind of the last big step. Right now, we can see I have, it's not hollow yet. I could try to look up like a hollow ring object. We can actually just see, yeah, we have like different types of things. This is like an actual ring object, so it's got a bit of like a beveled edges and stuff. So it's not exactly what I want. What we'll do is we'll modify this to be hollow, as hollow as we want. We can change the thickness of the walls, and then we can keep adding on to that with, you know, with objects that we keep customizing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to Control C, Control V to copy paste. You can also use copy paste buttons up this way. Again, all the buttons that we use will be in multiple places. You can kind of do what you want. And then I can select on this duplicate one and go back to that option we didn't use yet, which is the like whole trait that we can apply to this. And we'll show what it does real quick, and then we'll actually do it. So now what I have is basically a non-existent object, where I basically have like a tool that can gouge out a component of like a solid object. I have a solid object, I have a whole object. I'm just going to kind of combine them, overlap them like this, just as a demo. And then I can left click and drag to select both of them at once. And then we'll get to the initial and most useful tool of this tool set up top, and that's going to be the group tool. I'm going to click on that. And what it basically does is it combines them into one new object, depending on what we add to it, and whether it's solid or whether it's hollow. We combine that and it cut out the hollow bit, and that vanished, and it just left what was left. We can do the same thing again with two solid objects. If I want to make like a little toucan beak face, I can leave them both solid, and then I can combine them again. Now we can see I just have one solid object at this point. This is basically how we design stuff. In this, we'll just be finding these shapes that we can think of as tools, and then adding them and subtracting them from the growing model that we have in front of us to get to that final design. I could Control Z to undo all of the steps that I just did. Or I can also, instead of doing that, I can click on this object, and then I can do the opposite. I can ungroup it, and it still is keeping track of what made that grouped object. So I can kind of undo it that way, and then, you know, maybe I can change this again and then group them again if I didn't quite like how I did it. That's how we can undo things. We can just ungroup them that way. We want to make a hollow can, basically. What we need to do is minimize the size just a little bit so it fits in the middle and cut it out. Although what we can see when I click on this handle, it's not moving in exactly, keeping it, you know, the X and Y the same size. I don't want to do that because it might get messed up. You can see when I click on this, it's giving, again, the unit list size handle. So I could click on this, come back and check that it's both the same dimensions or magnitude on both sides. But what I can actually do just to speed all of this way up is if I hold down my shift key, then it automatically keeps everything relative to itself and just zooms in and out the whole thing at once, instead of like accidentally skewing it like this. We can just hold shift and then skew it in and out like that. So I'm going to do that way. Now we can see it zoomed the whole thing down. So what I can do now is I can try and put it in the middle. We can see it kind of vanishes, but it's still inside that object. And the issue that we have is that when we scaled the whole thing down, it also scaled down the height dimension. I actually want to scale back up the height dimension itself. So we cut out both the top and bottom of this object in a second. I can come to this. I scaled down the whole thing, but I want to get the height back so it matches this. This is 18. We can come into this and just scale it up. I could just go 18, but I could also go as high as I want because I'm just going to use this to cut out of this. So that extra hollowness is not going to affect anything at all. I'll do it like that. And then what we can do is try and exactly in the middle. You can see that looks like it's exactly in the middle, but it might not be. It might be slightly off. We have a couple tools that I'll show us just so we see the full tool set in this of like the best way to do things exactly and most easily. One thing is down at the bottom, this tiny little snap grid tool, and that's affecting how many like spaces up, down, left, and right an object moves when you use the mouse, when you use the up and down and left and right keys on the control pad. You can see it's set to 1. I could set it to 5, and then you can see it's jumping a whole lot at once, but then it's quite difficult to line things up exactly. So what you might need to do is like scale the snap grid all the way down, and then you can see you have a lot of finesse to move things as you want, but you still can't quite see if it's exactly like in the middle, like that looks in the middle, but it might not be exactly. The most useful thing we'll do actually is use the automatic alignment tools built into this so everything's exact and up to snuff that way. I'm gonna left click, drag and select both of my objects. I have them like this. And then up this way, we have the align tool. So I can click on that. I can also just tap L to get it activated. And then you can see we have all these little buttons pop up. What this is going to do is going to move all the selected objects to be aligned, top down, left, right, middle, outside, any way that you want. And kind of see if let me begin this way so it's obvious. So if I like tap this one, it's going to line them up along this axis this way. If I tap this one, it's going to line them up along that axis. So I would use that when you want to do things as precisely as possible. Now we have this. We want to group them, which we saw in a minute. We can just kind of spin around to see this is sticking out the top. So we fix that height issue. If we spin down to see the bottom, we can see, yeah, it's like exactly level with the bottom. So it should cut out the bottom too. You can come in back to that group tool, also Control G if you want. And then you can see we get it exactly cut out like that. If we want, we can see the model that I might be trying to mimic is quite a thin wall. So maybe I'll come back, undo that real quick. And maybe I just want to scale the hollow bit out a little bit so it's not quite as thick. If I hold down my shift key, you can see it's going to scale it up relative to the top left piece of the object. So one last tool that we can add to make things as easy as possible is I can hold down the shift key and the alt key, and then you can see it scales things up and down from the middle instead of like this, which is, the one edge that we click opposite of. It's just holding down shift. You can see it's moving in and out to the handle is opposite. But if I hold down alt and shift, then it's moving in and out from the middle of the object. I can do that so it's not quite as thick, not quite as much plastic, fits the, aesthetic that I want with the final product. And then I can come back in one last time and combine them. And then I have my final shape like that. That's pretty cool. Now it's just one solid object. Again, we can ungroup it anytime we want, but right now it's like acting like one solid object. I can, kind of scale this down if I want. And again, this is all kind of unitless, but I just don't want it to be, quite so tall. My thumb needs to fit into it kind of nicely. I'm just kind of like imagining I don't need too much space, to fit my thumb to hold it open the book. So I'll just kind of do it, maybe like 10. We'll go with that. Any initial questions? I know we just got like half the tools already that come built in with this. So if you have any questions, let me know. But we can keep going and keep using the same tools and add a couple of new ones if we don't have any questions. What we'll do next is add like the wedge component that's going to actually stick into like the V of the book. I'll go ahead and grab that. So let me just check if we have any chat questions. No, okay. Okay. Yeah, so again, we can find any shape that we want. I'm just going to choose this, what is it called? A wedge. It's called the roof piece. That just needs like a basic like 3D triangle shape. And we'll just go ahead and kind of glom this on to the edge of the ring like this. But this is not going to be too exciting, but we just need to do a bunch of practice with moving an object, rotating it, lining stuff up, and then gluing it, grouping it again. I'm going to come in. I want to find my rotation handle like this. I'm just going to spin this 90. You notice if you hold the mouse outside of the wheel, you can do it by single degree by single degree. But if you hold the mouse inside the wheel, it does like these exact alignments, but like each 15 degrees. So that'll help you, do that as well. We have this like this. You can see when I rotated it, it's now like sticking out the bottom of the design. What I can do, I can click on the object. If I want, I can use this black handle, the kind of unique standing up by itself. This actually moves the object up and down like this. I can try and move it up, and you can see it's kind of showing me how close I am to the base. So I'm negative 0.1 away. Now I'm exactly on the base if I can line that up. But I can also just tap on it and click D. And D means down. In this case, we went up. But if I was like floating above, you can see my shadow now. If I'm floating above the plane and tap D, that just sticks it down flat to the plane of my object. I've got that now. Now we can kind of go ahead, and this is just going to be mostly eyeballing. We kind of want to see, how wide do I want to make this wedge relative to the thumb ring? How big is the bit that's going to hold open the book going to be? I can come in and kind of pull this out as much as I want. Pull it out a little bit. And again, this might be something that you just have to kind of conceptualize, and then you print out a prototype, and then you see, maybe you should scale that down by, half a magnitude. So it's totally just kind of getting used to it. We have this. We can see it's a bit too tall. So we'll go ahead and come in, and I'm just going to check on this. We can see this is 10 units tall. This is now 20. I can just come in, click on my Z units, and just put in exactly 10.2. Now they will line up and everything will be flush. Like that. You can see it's almost pretty good, but we want to kind of like embed it this way so it's not sticking up so much. We kind of want it down, kind of like this. And obviously we'll need to cut out the middle again, and then we'll need to group it. So what we'll begin doing is just kind of lining it up. So we'll say like about that's good. We can see it's off by a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and left click and drag, and then use my align L tools. And then I can just choose which one do I need. I'll choose this one to line them up along the up and down Y axis. And then I don't need this one. I don't want that. I've kind of lined up the other axis that I need. That's pretty good. We'll go ahead and maybe group them like this. But you can see when I do that, I still have the inside bit of the thumb ring. I can undo that. And then what we can do now is instead of making a second hollow object, like stick back inside and recut that out, what we'll do now is click on my ring. I'm going to ungroup it. Now I have my 3 objects back again. And now that I have a hollow object, I can group them all at once, and then that hollow shape is going to cut out both this shape and the wedge shape at once, and so I can use the same tool twice. So I can click on all of them. I'm going to use my combine tool, and then you can see we get the final shape. The stuff is cut out of the middle, and everything is lined up flush. Everything is good to go that way. Okay. Let's go ahead and add, just practice adding a couple additional things to get some additional practice. And then we'll do a couple different things at the end of the class. So we have the shape. So this is going to be my shape. This is my book open like this. This is my thumb sticking into it. So obviously on the top of the ring, what I'll see kind of sticking up at me on the page side, I can add stuff to if I want. Do a demo, a couple demos of adding stuff to that to practice. I'm going to come in. Let me see if I have, yeah, let me just add a diamond shape to practice some of this. I can add a diamond, but we still need to do a whole bunch of stuff. Again, I'm going to scale this bit down. I'm going to shift and alt and then pull this down a little bit, kind of eyeballing it. Let's go ahead and rotate it 90, like that. I can kind of try to line it up that way. Sort of like that. We want to kind of embed this, obviously. So we can see we have a couple steps to kind of stick it in the middle. One, I can tap my B key to pull it up like that. We can see I can change this 10 if I want, and 10 too, so it's the same on all sides. Now it's flush with the object. And then we can use my align tools again. I'm going to come in, use align, do it exactly in line up that way. And then if we pan down this way, we can see that we have align tools to do the z-axis, although we already have it lined up in flush in the same size exactly that way. So we don't need that one, but we could use that one if we needed to stick it in the middle. If we wanted this to not be quite as big, we could pan this down a little bit like that. And then we could align them, and that's how we would get it exactly in the middle. If it doesn't stick to the top and the bottom, you could do that if you want. Oops. That back in the middle. And then we can come in, we'll just kind of look at it this way. I'm just going to use my right arrow key and slowly pull it down. Kind of want it to be as well attached as I can. You could, as a design, have it like just touching like that. Although then we have to think about when we actually print it out, that's going to be like the tiniest bit of plastic holding this piece to this piece, so it's probably going to snap off. We would probably want to, like I originally did, stick it down so it's quite well meshed with it. That looks good, you know, kind of on this side. And then we just have that bit sticking out at the bottom. Again, we'll just keep doing the same steps that we did last time. Let's ungroup all of this, get that hollow tool back. And then we can come back in and do everything like that. And then we have everything nicely combined like that. We have a final object. If we need to modify anything, we can come in and maybe expand it a little bit. You know, maybe the thumb is not exactly round, so maybe we want to, you know, elongate it a little bit like that. So we could do something like that if you want. Yeah. Let's see, let's go back in time. I'm just going to pull away a copy of this, and I'm going to come back and redo this real quick. So we'll do that. Oops. Combine all of these. So I have that finished one. But now I have a copy of the ring down this way. So I'm going to move this, you know, prototype A to the top of my field like this. And then I can experiment to do something else with now prototype B if I want. So let me come in and we can see how we can add some different stuff to this. I come in, I have a bunch of tools. So I can come in and see I have some text. This one, again, is a special object, kind of like the can that we did in the beginning. We could do like the bevels and stuff. If I expand this, oops, You can have it say anything that we want. You have a couple font options, nothing too fancy. If you wanted to get like really fancy with different types of fonts and stuff, you might just try one of these different text tools, which have their own, functionality. But you could also do like what we've talked about a couple times now. You could make something in something like Canva, maybe that has text, and then download it as a transparent SVG, and then you could upload it into this so that you would get like a 2D bit of text made 3D, like I did with this logo, and then you can kind of do any custom text that you wanted to if you really wanted to get fancy. Let's come in. We can see we got this. We can change. Let's see what we can do. We can do height and stuff. We can do some bevel. I don't quite like that. We can do segments. I don't know what that's doing. But anyway, let's go ahead and try to attach this now. I'm going to come in and rotate it 90. Okay, it's obviously way too big at the moment. Let's come in, let's zoom in, let's tap D to bring it up. Let's check this. This is again like 10 units tall. So we can scale this down to 10. We'll just kind of do this with the Shift Alt trick again. Oops. So we can kind of scale it down a whole bunch. And then we can just, that's almost 10, so we'll just fix that quick. And then we can move it back, line it up. Let's do the align tool. So it's exactly in the middle, exactly like that. And then we'll do, again, we only have a couple tools as we can see, so we'll be using the same tools just in different ways or in the same ways each time. I'm going to put it just on the edge of the flat bit of the wedge. And then I'm going to pull it out like this. And then again, we'll just cut out the middle bit again, so it's kind of sticking out the top. It is sticking out the sides a little bit, so let's Shift Alt this in just so it's just inside. I'm just kind of eyeballing at the moment. Fix this a little bit. Not being too precise at the moment, but that's pretty much good. A little space on the side. And then we just need to think about the outside of the shape. I want it to stick out, a little bit. The E and the A stick out a little bit. The D sticks out a lot, so there's this side. And then we'll just come in, use my same trick again, combine it all, and then we have something like that. You can see we made one boo-boo. We didn't actually attach this side. It wasn't flush. So what we can do is just basically move that up a little bit so it is. You see it's not sticking out at all. That's fine. So we can come back in one last time. Do this all again. And then yeah, we have prototype B with that. Have my fields. There's a bunch of text tools. That was just the most basic ones. We have this round text tool that we could have used instead to kind of go around the outside. So it's not, sticking out flat like this. You could have rounded it off if you wanted. You could try that instead. They have a multi-line text tool, which just lets you do multiple lines like this. Or you could just do two text objects stacked up if you want. Nothing too special with that. So yeah, that's let's see if we missed anything. Yeah, so pretty basic. We do have a couple last cool tools. I'm actually going to jump to a new project now, but if we have any questions about this, go ahead and ask. But if not, I'm just going to quickly, in way less time than we just made this simple object, I'm going to make this really complicated object in just a couple minutes. We'll see one tool which lets us make this really quickly. So don't get too intimidated by it. Come in. And yeah, we want to make a plant pot. We'll focus on this one. We won't make one that looks exactly like this, but we want like a round plant pot that's hollow It has the base, so you can put soil in it. And then we want these like hollow geometric cutouts of it to give it some aesthetics, we can call it. We can do that the same way. Oh, yeah. Yeah, if someone has a question, you can go ahead and unmute, or I'll pull up the chat if you want to do it that way.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So you were saying how like how it can't change colors, right? So let's say, for example, and I want to make like a spider, right? So I make the whole body, it's for example gray, but
Mhm.
then I don't want the eyes to be the same color. So could I make the circles for the eyes, but then make them like holes and then just put them into the head and then print the eyes separately and then just glue them into the sockets? Can you do that?
Yeah, you could totally do that. Yeah, so if you want to design something that has different components, yeah, you could leave the eye separate and then glue it, attach it any way that you want in the end, and just submit them as different jobs. Do the body in gray, do the eyes as white. You could do it that way. Lots of people just paint these. If you just want to make it simple, then just deal with paint at the end. You could also do it that way. Like I said, some machines can handle multiple filaments at once. If you notice, let me come in with this. You notice so the colors in Tinkercad, that's just like a visual aid. It's just going to print out in what we put into the machine, so it's not going to automatically come out in red, obviously. But some machines do have multiple like filaments that you can use at once. So in that type of design, you might do something like this. You would have like this as red, this as green. I haven't done that myself, but you might do something like this in that case in which you actually say, this is its own piece, it's red, this is its own piece, it's green. Save the file like this, so then when you send it to the machine, the one that we don't have, the fancy one, it would know, when I'm printing out this piece is going to be red. When I'm printing out these pieces of it, it's going to be green. It's going to be one solid object in the end. You just submit it this way so it knows when to kind of switch between the red and the green like that. Oh, we must have it, okay. Okay, yeah, good question. We'll go ahead and let's make this really complicated looking plant pot. Looks like it would take a lot of time, but the coolest tool, which we haven't done yet, is waiting to speed that up. I'm going to come in and we can do the base pretty easily. I have the same shape that I began with last time. Let me zoom in and I'm just going to, maybe I'll pull the sides all the way up. I might want the bevel this time so it looks as nice as possible. I think I'm too zoomed in. So I have the bevel, you can see the top and bottom like lip, get a nice like softness to them. So you can choose any setting that you want. We can go back to the basics and kind of hollow this out. I can Control C, Control V, make that the whole shape. Shift Alt, size down just a little bit. And then we can pull, oops, not the black handle. We want the white handle to actually affect the height. Black handle moves the whole thing up and down. The white handle does the height. We can do that like this. Let me click them both, align them up exactly like that. You can see it kind of floated the outside cone, so I'll tap V to pull that down. Let's just check to see. Let's combine these. You can see it comes out pretty good with the one mistake that we didn't leave the bottom to put the soil in. So let's just undo that and then come back in and just pull this up. You can like check the size. It's like 2 units right now. You can just kind of eyeball it depending on how thick you want it to be. But I will combine them like that. And then we have a nice pot with a base, and it's just waiting on one step, which looks like you would have to do it, 100 different steps to cut out all these pieces. But because it's so geometric and like following a trend of the cutouts, we can do that pretty quickly. So we'll see the last cool tool that we have in this toolkit. But to begin, let's make the shape that we want to cut out of this. This is just like diamonds. just come in and we can just use this like cube shape. I'm going to come in, I'm going to scale this whole thing up so it's kind of obvious when we look at it. I'm going to come into this. I'm going to kind of scale the whole thing down a little bit. We just want tiny little diamonds cut out of it. Kind of like that. That's pretty good. Maybe a bit too small, just so we can see it in the demo. Maybe something like that. Let's see, we want to make them diamond. Let's just rotate it a tiny bit like that. And then let's go ahead and just do one cutout to get the gist of it. And then we'll see how to do all of it at once. One thing I'll just note is we could just do this one at a time if we wanted. But if we think about it, what we can do instead is make this really long, like punch-out tool. And then when we stick it in, we'll automatically be doing the front side and the back side at once, so we can immediately half how much button clicking we need to do to achieve this effect. So I'm going to make it really long. It doesn't matter that it's 20 feet long. Once we combine this, that'll go away. We can see it's doing what we want. I just didn't have it lined up quite that well. Let's come back in. I'm going to use my alignment tool just to get it kind of, let's see, exactly in the middle like this. Is it in the middle now? Yep, like that. So that's in the middle. I'm going to click on it. It's like sticking out the bottom, so we don't want to cut out the base because we need the plant to not fall out. I'm going to click on the black handle. I can move it up a little bit. If we check inside, we can see it's safely, actually, I think it's still slightly touching down on the base based on that shadow. It's kind of difficult to tell. Yeah, I think, yeah, when you see the shadow at the bottom, that means it's cutting out the base. That's going to move it up enough just so it's not touching. We can see, again, need to go that much up so I'm not cutting out the base. We can try this again just to double check, combine that. And then, yeah, we can see we successfully cut out 2 pieces that we wanted. But if we check the model, we still need to cut out 150 pieces. Now what we can do, and we won't finish this, but you'll see how you can finish it pretty quickly. Come back. I'm going to just move this to the middle a little bit. And then we'll use this tool up in the top left, which is called duplicate and repeat. And basically what it's going to let us do, it's going to let us do something to an object. And then it's going to let us kind of mimic and do the same thing again and again and again automatically without having to do it so many times. So it'll make sense once we see it in 2 seconds. So I'm going to click on the object I want to duplicate and repeat. I'm going to click duplicate and repeat. And we can't see anything that happened. If I do it again, looks like nothing happened. But actually a second copy of the same punch tool that we have is now sitting in the same exact place. So you can't click any place else because then it goes away. So I have to click, duplicate and repeat, and then just adjust that object. I'm going to click on this, and you can see now we have a second copy of the same thing that we can do anything that we want with. I'm going to come in and spin it a little bit. I want the diamond pretty close, like that. And then what we can do is you can tap the same button again now that we've made an adjustment, and it keeps doing the same thing. So it's basically memorizing. We began with an object and then we rotated it, by 15 degrees. So then each time we click it again, it's going to do the same exact steps again and again. So we can do this like this if we want, and then we could copy everything. Let me zoom out a little bit. So we have, level 1, and then I'm going to come in, holding shift. I'm going to try to select everything. Okay, so I'm going to select everything like this. And then if I try to do duplicate and repeat again, and then move, everything up, we can see I'm moving up my punch out tools, but I accidentally copied the plant pot itself. So let's just come back. So what I want to do is select everything. And then if I hold down my shift key, I can deselect anything that I want. So I had everything selected. I held down shift and now I deselected the plant pot, hopefully. Let me delete that. Grab everything, hold shift, unselect that. And yeah, now you can see I'm just holding on to this stuff. And then I can click duplicate and repeat. And what I'm going to do is I have a copy of all of them. I can move them up a little bit. I can also do a couple steps at once if I want. So I can move them up a little bit. And then I'm trying to find my rotation wheel. Let me spin them a little bit like this. We have a lot going on, so it's difficult to see. Yeah, that looks like I pretty much moved it, like one half step to the right. And then we can just do that again. You can see it's making a copy of everything, moving it up by the amount we set, and rotating it by a little bit. And we can just keep doing that as many times as we want. Looks like that's one too many times. We don't want like the top lip cut out, so we'll undo that. And then we have this giant Sonic the Hedgehog looking thing. But once we clean it up by just combining all of it into one shape, it'll take a minute to like calculate and do it all. We can see we have a nice little plant pot. It looks really nice given that we just began CAD designing a little bit ago. So yeah, that's a really neat, I really like this tool. You can do a lot of cool stuff with that. That's the fun thing you can do once you know everything out. Yep, so that's pretty cool. Any questions about this tool? The concept is pretty easy, though I know it might take a second to like click in how to do it. And it can be finicky if you try to duplicate and repeat something and then you accidentally like click away, the duplicate and repeat goes away or something. You just have to be cautious with clicking. When you duplicate and repeat, you want to just move the thing that you want the way that you want, and then you can duplicate and repeat that way. But yeah, that's pretty nice. We can come back in and do anything that we want. We can elongate it a little bit if we want a tall, skinny plant pot and we want to elongate the punch outs. If we don't want that, we would have to elongate the can to begin with and then add the punch outs so we don't elongate the diamonds. Totally up to you how you want to make stuff. You might want to make prototypes like I did. You have copies and you can do different things to the same thing to see which one you like best. Totally up to you. I have a couple last things I want to show off. That's kind of the end of the demo and the making stuff itself. I just want to show a couple things that I thought might be useful to people as they get into designing stuff. Let me see if it's in my slideshow. Yeah, so we already talked about this twice, actually. People anticipated my question. So yeah, if you want to add a 2D piece of text, a 2D design, like a silhouette, a logo, something like that, you just need it as a SVG file. And then you would just come in and add it like this, drop in the SVG file, and then you get it as basically a flat object, but just now it has some z-axis thickness to it. You can do that. We've already talked about that. And then one last cool thing I want to mention is that, again, we said that you can just find anything that you want on a 3D design website. This one is really the one as we talked about. A lot of the coolest things that you can find is stuff that like moves. If you type in like articulated, that's all these things with like moving joints and stuff. So you can find all of these. These could be difficult to design homemade. They look quite complicated. Maybe we could use the duplicate and repeat button to do a lot of it the same. Oops. Go to this. If you wanted to make something like this, you can imagine you could set up one little joint and hinge piece and then duplicate it and repeat it to make it as long as you want. But it's still pretty difficult to make like a joint, a hinge by itself. What you can do is I found this on the website. The name of the object is articulated anything. And it basically is just a hinge piece that I already have in the design. I'm going to pull it down this way. You can just add anything that you want. You have a pre-built hinge, and you can just duplicate it, size it down, anything that you want. If we zoom in, we can kind of see this indicator to move the camera. You can see it's just kind of a hinge kind of inside that. If we move up this way, yeah, you can just kind of see it like that. This can print just in one piece. And then when you pick it up off the print bed, once it's finished, you just kind of need to like snap it a little bit to get it moving and to get it loose. But yeah, this is just one solid hinge that's printed like that. It's not multiple pieces that you print out and then assemble the object. You can just print totally as is, and then you can do what you want with it. So that's a nice tool, just an example of lots of nice tools that you can find online to make something homemade. Like I was beginning with thinking, if I wanted to make a butterfly that can flap, I don't maybe know how to make this homemade. But actually with this, we can make it pretty easily. If we come into Tinkercad, we already have this hinge, which we just downloaded. If we type in butterfly, we have this object, which I already have on the field. So let me just pull that down into view. And you could find like an SVG of a butterfly if you want. This one is actually a special model in Tinkercad, which lets you kind of totally customize. Let me zoom in a little bit so we can see it. Totally customize the shape of this thing. Zoom in a little bit that way. And you can see you can choose, how the wings look. You can kind of skew anything that you want. You kind of get the gist of what these buttons can do. You kind of do anything that you want, make a completely homemade butterfly. And then what you can do is just take it, size it up a little bit. It began with a fly angle, so it's tilted up like this, but I just want to lay it down flat. And then I can take my hinge piece, and I'm not going to do it now because I just want to leave a couple minutes for questions and stuff, and you get the idea now. But I could take my hinge piece, I could cut out a little bit along the middle of this butterfly, and then I can come in, size down my hinge, and then I can have the two pieces connected like that. If you wanted to spend a little bit of time, it would be just as easy to do the whole wings. You could do hinges along the whole side. You would just need to, again, spend a little bit of time to do some cutting out of the butterfly. I would just move this in like this, maybe. Oops. Pull this way up. So we have this. I could punch out the middle of this, and I could duplicate and repeat, pull it a little bit to the right, and then just keep doing this. And then I would have my wings in my segments, and then I would just have to come back as a second step and pick up my hinge piece, size it down a little bit and just add it in those gaps to make my complete custom-made butterfly if I wanted. But yeah, so really easy once you know a couple of these things floating around, once you get an idea of the creativity involved in making these. Really easy to make cool stuff. Have a new sketch tool in Tinkercad, which you can put in, and then you can kind of sketch anything that you want. They also have a scribble tool, I believe, if you don't want to draw something homemade. Yes, you can draw a butterfly if you wanted. You can draw any shape and add that in. I can do a custom shape, and then I have that. Yeah, it's a really cool website. You can find a lot of stuff. You can find screws and threads. This has built in. I know we found a hinge off Singapore, so you can also find screws and stuff to make stuff like that. Let's see if they have hinge. I know they have like all in socket joints, I think. You can find all kind of connecting pieces, all that complicated stuff, that maybe making this doing homemade would be difficult, but if you just need that and you can make the rest of the object, pretty easy to make a pretty cool project. I will shut up now. If anyone has any questions, how to do a specific thing, how to download it, how to anything, you can go ahead and ask. That's the end of my spiel. Thank you all who came. I'm going to end the videotape actually.